What's going on? What's going on, Facebook? It is your girl, Myah, and I am back with yet another episode of Making a Change with Myah. You guys already know this is a special episode today. I'm back once again on my day that's not officially my day. But today I am bringing you guys a conversation that is long overdue. Something that everyone feels as if they wanted. I wanted the conversation. My community wanted the conversation. So we made it happen. So my special guest today is none other than Mr. Johnny Dawkins himself. How you doing today, Mr. Dawkins?
Outstanding, Ms. Warren. Thank you for having me. Thank you for making an exception for me to do it today, Thursday. So thanks, ma'am.
Absolutely. No problem at all. So before we get into this here conversation, Mr. Dawkins, the first thing I want to ask you is the same thing I ask all elected officials that come on the show. What district do you represent? And if you could kind of pinpoint some locations that are actually in your district.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. District 5 and this area, think of it as Oak Ridge Avenue in Haymont or Haymount West. Bragg Boulevard is a boundary, and then out west to Lafayette Village and Kingsford, Clairway, Briarwood, Van Story, and Tallywood. The Rayford Road area, think of the Village Drive area as a boundary out Boone Trail, Bordeaux, Douglasburg Junior High School, Douglasburg Senior High School, and out Rayford Road with the western edge being Lafayette Village. Yes, ma'am. About 22,000 residents.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So quick question. How long have you actually sat in the seat of councilman?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, this is my second go-round. 03 to 05, I was the District 9 representative, which was pretty much the same general area. Then we had the Big Bang annexation at the end of 05, and I got beat. A lot of my district was moved into the newly annexed area. They didn't really care what I thought. That wasn't important. They were mad, and a lot of them still are mad. And so they fired me. So that was 2 years, and then I was elected in 2017 and 19, so 2 more years, so 4. And we're about 7 months into this one. So yes, 4.5 years.
Okay. Now, after doing some research and, really looking into, who you were, your dad, he was mayor. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. My dad, J.L. Dawkins Jr., and I'm J.L. the third. Dad was first elected in 1975, and he, for city council, at that time we had 6 at-large seats, and he was beat by Marion George, a prominent African-American attorney here in Fayetteville. And Dad served 12 years on city council, and he served 13 as mayor. So Dad is the longest serving mayor in the history since Fayetteville was made a city, when Campbellton was combined with Cross Creek, I believe in 1762. So I'm very proud of that.
Okay, so question, do you plan on following in his footsteps and becoming the mayor one day?
Well, sure, it's definitely on my mind, but I've said publicly that I'll have to wait and look at the tea leaves, so to speak, as we politicians say. We're a 50-50 city, and the way I look at it, African American and Caucasian, and Mitch Colvin would be hard to beat. I'll say that publicly. Just got off the phone. He called about 45 minutes ago, so we talk almost every day. And but if he were not to run, I'd sure look at it. But then there's a lot of other people that want to be mayor. So I'd like to end up one day in Raleigh. That's where my dad wanted to go. Unfortunately, he passed away. My granddaddy, Johnny Lee Dawkins Sr., was in the North Carolina House of Representatives for 2
Wow.
terms.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was he got elected in 1948, and then again in 1950.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mr. Dawkins, you are no stranger to the public eye.
No.
So, there have been a lot of things that have been going on here in Fayetteville. We've been protesting, we've been doing different things like that. So pretty much that's what we want to talk about today. Today we want to talk about, what's been going on in Fayetteville, how you feel about it. The public has certain questions about the emergency meeting that just took place maybe 2 weeks ago with City Council. You had one at 4 and you had one at 5, so we'll ask a couple questions about that. So I just want to kick things off and get it started with when the protesting started taking place right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. How did you feel about that, and did you think that it would last this long?
Well, I wasn't happy that there was a protest. If you're talking about, I'm not sure which protest you're talking about. If you're talking about the one where you were involved at the Market House with setting up structures, I had asked that we move you all because there was a structure set up, and I think there ended up being maybe 4 tents. I don't know, maybe been 3, but when I went to go look at it, I said to the city manager and city attorney, I said, look, they put a structure up on public property, and did they get a permit? Well, the answer was no. I said, well, then we need to move them, and where can we move them? And one answer was, well, we can look at Festival Park. I said, okay, let's look at Festival Park. And then it came back in writing that no, we could look at moving them to Clark Park. And I said, absolutely. And I said, secondly, this is a public safety issue, because when I rode around the Market House, I almost hit one of the folks that were kind of hanging out or walking between the structures you had set up and then the different corners.
I got you. That was not the one I was particularly talking about. I was just asking in general, but
right. Well, no, we can go back to May 30th.
Okay.
No,
when I say protest, I'm talking. I generally like to start off with a trail, and so I was talking about the very first protest. When the very first protest at Scarborough Road took place that day, that Keem had set it up.
Yes, that's May 30th.
Yes,
that's the 20th anniversary of my dad's death. So obviously. And Dad being the longest serving mayor in the history of the city of Fayetteville, that's a date I'm not going to forget. And it appeared quite peaceful there at Scarborough Road. I watched it. Somebody had it on Facebook, and so I watched it happen. I listened to the mayor speak. I listened to the different speakers. The one young man asked the mayor, I think, to come up and speak, and then the mayor did that, and then. I guess it moved toward nightfall, and a number of them, I think, went downtown, and then that's when the incident occurred. And I saw that just a few minutes after it happened, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as we talk about the incident that you were talking about, for those who don't know, but I'm pretty sure everyone does, you're referring to the incident where the Market House was set on fire.
Yes, and the young man caught him, somehow was on fire, because I had people texting me this short video where he caught on fire, and he came down the steps, and people were just pouncing on him, trying to get the fire out.
Now, here's a question, right? So everyone knows that the Market House is a very controversial topic right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Yes. You, as someone who sits on City Council, you have the right to vote about these type of things. Can we get your vote to have the Market House removed?
No. And I was born right up the street from the Market House, and what I proposed is the Market House be turned into an African American museum, that we glass in the arches, in effect make a museum right there to honor and never forget our national shame, or at least our southern shame of slavery. And I propose that I want to see, I want to tear up Green Street, that 100 block of Green Street, right there in front of Fascinate You Museum, the old City Hall, First Citizens Bank building, make it a plaza. And in that plaza, I want a statue of Mr. Grimes, black man, who designed that incredible, beautiful structure. One of only 5, I believe, in the United States and Europe that are still standing. A market type design made out of bricks and wood and glass.
Now, like you said, there's only 5 still standing, and you know, right. Now, so my podcast, I allow you guys to speak how you feel, not speak how I feel.
Absolutely.
And so, coming from an African American standpoint, that building is very traumatic for a lot of people. Yes. That building, you know, although I didn't engage in such behavior, I could understand why they set it on fire. If I could be quite honest with you, I'm one of the ones that say that no charges should have been brought up against these young men, because you have to understand in which we're coming from. This what's going on right now in Fayetteville. This is not the first time we said remove the Market House. This is not the first time that we've been very vocal about how we feel about it, but nothing's ever been done about it. Now, you know, they just felt that it was time to take matters into their own hands. And, you know, although I wish they would have did it in a different manner, I stand with those young men, because it's like, at what point do we have to start doing different things to get folks' attention? Because I truly believe, had that not been done to that particular Market House, like, you know, I really believe that, you know, nothing would have been done. We wouldn't be having this conversation. And so, you know, it's unfortunate that these young men are facing charges. And, you know, I hope, you know, sooner or later we can get this taken care of. So from your standpoint, do you really agree and stand with the fact that these young men should be facing charges?
Oh, absolutely. They broke the law, Ms. Warren. And we're a nation, a state, a county, and a city of laws. And when you have lawlessness, you move towards anarchy. And the key is, it's so important to study history. And I was thinking before I came over here, what are, you know, people are only going to remember 1 or 2, maybe 3 things from this Facebook live posting, but it's the importance of history. And the study of history. It's so important for your generation to know history. And it appears to me that a lot of folks really don't care about history, and then they want to make their own history. And I'm proud of them for doing that, as long as it's legal. And what those young folks did was not legal. And when something's not legal, just when other people wanted me to go talk to y'all over there when you were at the Market House, I said, no, they're breaking the law, in my opinion. And now my opinion was not held up until 5 or 6 days later, when they said, well, actually, we could have moved them because they put a structure on public property without a permit.
Okay.
You could have been there.
Okay.
You could have stayed there, Ms. Warren, Myah, as long as you didn't have a structure. Because we've let folks camp out, sleep at the police.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right there at my dad's bus, which I hope they don't knock down, but gosh, we're in a new time here.
Well, first and foremost, I do want to say the people said that they could barely hear you, so if you can, just speak up a little bit. Okay. And as it pertains to that comment, that you hope they don't knock your dad's bus down. We are not a destructive generation. I need people to understand that. So I'm gonna be quite honest. That comment kind of really blows me, because I'm gonna be honest with you. We're not destructive.
Well,
as we talk,
I kind of paint it as your generation, and I shouldn't have. And I'm sorry that I shouldn't have implied that.
I got you.
I guess my frustration is watching these events happen across our nation.
Okay.
And having lived in many decades as I have. This goes back to the civil rights movement in the middle 60s. And
well, it's funny that you said that, because I do believe at the meeting that took place, I do believe Councilwoman Ingram said this is just like 1964. That was her comment. And then you said, well, this is not 1960. So it's funny that you say that now. And when Councilwoman Ingram actually, you know, implied that statement, it wasn't taken kind of like how you're saying it now. So if you don't mind me asking, what's the difference between her comment and what you just said?
Well, there's a difference between 1964 and 1968. Martin Luther King, 1964 was more of the Malcolm X and a lot more violent protests. And then with Martin Luther King, he ushered in an era of non-violent protests, marches over the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. The different marches that occurred in Montgomery, Alabama, or Atlanta, Georgia, I remember, were peaceful protests. And then the March on Washington, when he gave, whatever year it was, 66, 60, I was a little guy. I was watching and on my black and white television and hearing the I Have a Dream speech, whenever that was. And they ran it a number of times.
Okay.
Those were peaceful civil rights protests. And it took, just to interject some politics, it took Republicans convincing the Democrats they ought to vote with them to grant these civil rights to African Americans that were well deserved. And yeah, I'm a Republican.
No. I definitely understand. And so, since we're talking about, when things first kicked off, right? We can't skip over the fact that looting took place right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, my standpoint on that is, once again, folks may not agree. I stand with them. Because I feel like to a certain extent, you have to understand that things have been peaceful. We have watched so many countless African Americans lose their life at the hands of police brutality.
Where?
And so,
in Minneapolis, in Atlanta.
Fayetteville, North Carolina. Mr. Lawrence Graham, are you not familiar with that?
Tell me when it was. I do not recall.
You do not recall. I want to say Lawrence was, I want to say it was 2012, maybe between 12 and 15. It was one of the two. My thoughts are all over the place right now, but it was one of those. Mr. Lawrence Graham, he was shot by a cop after a traffic stop, and he later, I want to say it was a couple months down the line, he later passed away due to his injuries. So it happens right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And so when Mr. George Floyd passed, you have to understand something. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was it for the world. And so when the looting took place here in Fayetteville, it was like people saying enough is enough. You have to understand, the young man lost his life in Atlanta recently at the hands of police brutality, and the world, we're still protesting. Breonna Taylor didn't happen right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, but we're protesting and standing for that. And so just because it doesn't happen all the time here in Fayetteville doesn't mean Fayetteville doesn't hurt. And so when the looting took place, it was like a sense of, we need to be heard. We need our voices to be heard. And I've been one to vocally say, and I don't mind saying again today, had the looting never took place, we probably wouldn't be having some of the conversations we're having about changing stuff right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay. Well, number one, I can't stand with you with the looting and you approving of that. That's number one. That's against the law, and those people should be arrested. And we'll catch them. I mean, the mayor said we're going to eventually get them. I mean, we got them all on camera, but it's just going to take a while. Now, we've arrested 11 that were involved with the market house, and all of them reside in Fayetteville, North Carolina, that have been arrested. All right, so now, I'm a big believer in preparation. I got FBI statistics. All right, black on black killing in the United States, 57 black on black killing for every million members of the murderer's race. It's less than 1. It's 0.95 blacks killed by whites. Whites killed by whites, it's almost 11. Whites killed by blacks, it's almost 12. So what I'm driving at, yes, what the fellow in Minneapolis did, he should go to prison, whether they get him on first-degree murder or second-degree murder, he should go to prison. The other fellows that were involved, should they go to prison? Probably so, because they didn't do anything to stop the guy. The fellow in Atlanta, he shot the guy in the back. Now, supposedly the video shows him turning. I think he took the taser maybe from the cop and turned back to shoot, and the Atlanta cop shot him. That fella's probably going to prison, because the deal is you don't shoot people in the back. You just
like here in Fayetteville with Lawrence Graham.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to admit, I don't know the facts around that case. I mean, I feel like I'm responsible because I'm a council member and the mayor got elected mayor in 2017, and as most of the other council members, and then we got 4 new council members in 2019. But I consider myself to be responsible in 2017.
Okay.
And I've sent email. In fact, I sent a text to the city manager, the mayor, and the mayor pro tem today, saying, I want to see our stats on this driving while black, because I thought we fixed that in 2013, but now I'm hearing that it's ticking up again.
Well,
and
see,
we need to stop that.
So here's my thing, right? Even as it pertains to your chart that you showed, although I appreciate you doing research, we're not here to talk about black on black crimes. We're here to talk about what's going on right now, which is police brutality. And I feel like, I'm gonna be honest with you, and Mr. Dawkins, this is why I have my podcast, right? I want you to be able to speak freely, but I'm gonna do so as well, right? And so with that being said, I'm sorry, black on black crimes is not, that's not the topic. It's police brutality, because that is what's going on more so. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I get offended every time I go on social media and I see someone say, oh, we're talking about police brutality, let's talk about black on black crimes. Why are we trying to take away the spotlight on what the spotlight needs to be put on? Stop talking about black on black crimes and let's own up and say, yes, we have a police brutality issue and we need to deal with it.
It's 57 times, Myah. These are the facts. These aren't, I think there's police brutality. Show me in the last 3 or 4 years that I've been on council, if we got a problem, by golly, I know this mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, the rest of the council is going to be very interested in fixing any police brutality that occurs in the city of Fayetteville.
Well, if we're going to fix it, can we get charges on the cop that shot Mr. Lawrence Graham? Can we work on that? That'll help us a lot, actually.
Number one or number two, I don't know when that was. I don't know who the police chief was, because it wasn't Chief Hawkins. And to answer your question, if it's a murder, there is no statute of limitations. So to answer your question, I can sure request that case be looked into. That's a very valid suggestion.
Okay, well, see, I can deal with that. I can deal with that.
Just shoot me an email or shoot me a Facebook message, and I will move it forward.
All right.
2 years in a row, I've been voted the most responsive politician. 2 years in a row.
So that's funny that you've been voted that way, right? Because here's my concern. You just brought that up, right? You just sat here and said that you almost because it was unsafe, that you almost hit someone driving around the market house when we were at the structure, right?
Yes.
So
I
here,
was in the right. Now,
no, I didn't say you were in the wrong. It's going to lead me to my question. You were at the market house. Why did you not stop and speak with us? Why did you not say, okay, I'm the most respected politician, or let me. Responsive, respected. I'm sorry. I'm the most responsive politician. I'm in my car. I'm driving. Let me stop and hear their demands. Let me stop and see what it is they're doing. Because had you stopped, you could have heard our demands. Had you stopped, you could have saw that we were feeding the homeless. So as a politician, to hear that you were driving around and you didn't stop to speak with us, that offends me. Because you know who did come and speak with us, or who came to listen to our demands? Shaquilla Ingram. She came and saw. She came and now the crazy part is Shaquilla didn't want us out there. So she was telling us, go home, we could do this a different way. But she came and at least heard from us. One of the only city council representatives until that meeting happened with Ingram and Waddell and Kinston. So my problem is you were driving and you did not stop. Why?
Let me answer the question. And you can verify this with Mario Benavente. And I was eating at Dogwood Deli. And he came over and somebody must have told him I was there. I don't know. But Mario came in and said, I want you to come talk to these people. I said, no. What they are doing is illegal. They have put a structure on public property without a permit, and then it is a public safety issue. I said, so now if they will come off of that market house property and be legal, I will definitely listen. Because as I say pretty much every day, I want to listen to you and everybody else, as long as you're in a legal setting, just like we are right here.
Absolutely.
Because I want to understand, I want to listen, and then I've got to process your words so that I understand what you want. And I'm hearing that you believe there's police brutality right here in Fayetteville.
Absolutely.
And then that's something that we have to investigate and determine whether that exists, or whether you're basing that on problems around our nation.
Now, the funny thing is, you say we broke the law.
Yes.
I have spoken with Mayor Mitch Coven. He was on my podcast, which
Yes.
can be found on my Facebook page,
Yes.
can be found on YouTube. And your mayor said we did not break the law. So how does the mayor of Fayetteville and other elected officials say we don't break the law? But Mr. Johnny Dawkins, a guy, have you ever been a cop before?
Have I ever been a cop?
Yes.
I have
So
not.
so to a certain extent, in your personal belief, do you know all of the law?
No.
Okay. So my question is, how can the mayor, other elected officials say we didn't break the law, but Mr. Johnny Dawkins, who just said he don't know all the law, he has never been a cop, how are you able to say that we broke the law by having those tents?
Well, I do know some of our ordinances. You asked me, do I know all of the law? And that answer is no. Now, yeah, I went to law school, and after 2 semesters, I quit. So I'm not a lawyer. But I can tell you that setting up a structure on public property is against our ordinances. Now, but the other issue, whether that's in my mind, and you correctly pointed out that it's in a park, and the city,
No. It's not in a park.
The market house is not, and the city attorney said, Councilman Dawkins, my opinion is the market house is not a park.
Yes, she did.
And I said, well, then would it be considered public property? And she said, yes. And I said, well, do we have an ordinance? And she said, well, it doesn't specifically define a structure. For instance, if we had a lady in a Ford Bronco sitting out in front of the library for weeks on end, and we can actually ticket her or cite her, but we have to give her 90 days to move her vehicle. Whereas we had a couple of things we could have gotten you on.
Okay, please tell me.
After 4 days, you cannot cook food and donate it without an inspection by the county. Now that's the county I'm pointing towards.
I got you.
And that's not the city. So that was a county ordinance that you were possibly breaking because you were providing food. You were cooking food. You had what's called an open flame. And you can't have, it's in the ordinance, you can't have an open flame.
You know what's funny though? The first night we were out there, we actually had a cookout and open flames were there. And the fire people came out, Mr. Dawkins, and they told us it was nowhere near the market house. It was across the street. And we actually offered them food. They said no thank you and they left. So people came out. Now, if the food was an issue, why did no one come to approach us? Here's where I have an issue, right? I feel like if these laws were truly broken, right, and you say that they were, I'm not going to argue that whether they were or not, why did no one come shut us down? Let's be honest, because if we were truly in the wrong, why did no one come to shut us down? Now, they came to check on the gas can that was out there. They came to check on the open flames. They came and said something about the music. So at what point were they going to come and say, shut all this down, if this was truly a issue?
Great question. I think you all originally set up Wednesday night. It was either Wednesday night or Thursday night. And I can't recall. And once you all set up, and by the way, you can do a Freedom of Information request for all of the texts and all of the emails between the council members, because I said, we have to move now and shut them down and possibly look at moving them to another location. And the city of Fayetteville sent out a press release from Kevin Arata that said, this is within your First Amendment rights of free speech.
Absolutely.
And then I says, well, to me, it's a public safety issue because numerous people are in the street and causing cars to have to go around them, and it is creating a hazard. And I think the mayor mentioned that on your on your Facebook Live. But believe me, you, for a number of days, until Monday at 4 o'clock, when the city manager of Fayetteville called me and said, Councilman, we can move in and we can move them. And I said, well, it's hot, and let's talk about it some more. and then let's decide the next couple of days. But I got to believe it's so doggone hot, they're not going to want to stay out there. But if we decide to move them in a couple of days, let's talk about it, and let's be peaceful about it. And because we don't know if they've had anybody infiltrate their group that might not be decent people like the people that are protesting are. So
when you say that, in other words, you were insinuating we don't know if it could turn violent or chaotic.
That's right. You're exactly right.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, Mr. Dawkins. That right there is where I have an issue, because it's like you automatically assume that we're chaotic people. You automatically think that it can turn that way. But the crazy part is, and what actually got stated when you guys had that emergency meeting, there was an email sent from a citizen who said, if you don't, I'm paraphrasing, pretty much was saying, if you don't do something, and Councilwoman Tisha Waddell read it, if you don't do something, the same people driving around the market house, that can turn violent. So it bothers me that you can get pretty much a threat from a citizen, but you haven't even so much as had a conversation with myself or anyone in the group other than Mario, and you automatically assume that if you come move us, it could turn violent. How can you make that conclusion?
Well, just turn the TV on. Look at Portland. Look at Seattle. Look at Minneapolis. Look at Washington, D.C. Look at Baltimore. So many of these protests were started by good and decent people, and others infiltrate. Look at Raleigh. My friend Marianne Baldwin, the mayor of Raleigh, has had a rough 5, 6, 7 weeks now since George Floyd was murdered. It's a situation where my cool heads have to prevail, and it's best to talk it out. But now, I want to make sure I say again, I wasn't going to talk with you until, in my opinion, what you were doing, you could have been stopped from doing, whether it be a structure or whether it be a public safety issue.
Okay, I agree. So people are commenting here, and they're saying they get what you're saying, but we're talking about Fayetteville. So in Fayetteville, yes, we had one night where things got chaotic. But you're talking about protesters who were at the market house, Mr. Dawkins, who were being peaceful from the time we got there to the time that we left. So I'm asking you, when you had that conversation, why would you, because I need you to answer this question, why insinuate that it could possibly turn violent, and if we have never, the entire time we were at the market house, showed any signs of violence?
Because you were breaking the law, Myah Warren. And in my mind, you were breaking the law because that was a public safety issue. And if you are a lawbreaker, that's not good. We don't know where and how, going forward, what could happen. I mean, because there were, a number of people that had guns in your group.
That were registered. That were registered, Mr. Dawkins. They
were concealed.
Yeah, but see, they had the right. See, it's funny. See, Mr. Dawkins, that's why I love this. It's funny that you bring that up, because everyone that had a weapon could have a weapon. If you go pull, they had the right to have said weapon. Do you know why we had the weapon, Mr. Dawkins? Because our lives were threatened, Mr. Dawkins. Because I was at the courthouse doing what I had the right to do, speak, and someone pulled up and threatened to get out and fight me, Mr. Dawkins. So we were doing what we are allowed to do, which is to protect ourselves. So I do believe even the weapons were not an issue. So even if they would have come and tried to remove us peacefully, my group had already discussed it, and everyone who came out respected us enough to know if we would have been moved to go peacefully, Mr. Dawkins, because we are not a group of angry individuals. We are just a group that want change. That's what it was at the market house. Once again, had you stopped your lovely vehicle that day you were driving around to talk to us, Mr. Dawkins, you probably would have saw that we're not lawbreakers. We're citizens who want a change.
Well, but see, you broke the law in my mind because it was a public safety issue. If you would have been protesting at Festival Park or Clark Park or even across the street from the market house on private property, that's absolutely fine. And I would have been happy to go over there after I ate lunch, because Mario came over when I was eating lunch and with my neighbor, actually. And I said, hey, I think what they're doing, it's a public safety issue. They've erected a structure on public property. I don't think they can be doing that. And so I'm not going to go over there. And,
now you do realize that you're an elected official, right?
Absolutely.
And
yes,
so
ma'am.
with that
every
being said,
minute of every day.
with that being said, it's not about what's in your mind. It's about what's in these books and the actual laws. Because I can say all day, okay, it's against the law to eat at McDonald's. But unless, I can say that that's in my mind, Mr. Dawkins, but unless I see a law, black and white, that proves that, I have no legal leg to stand on.
Well,
so,
let me educate you. I am 40 years older than you are, and been around a long time. A public safety issue is an objective. It's in the mind of the beholder. Meaning, in my opinion, because you had people in the street, which is not legal, that became a public safety issue. That's now the structure on the public property. Technically, there's some gray area in that ordinance, and but I'd like to move on past all that. I want to know what change you want to see, because I know you're separate now, or at least Ville Voices has said on Facebook that they no longer associate with you. Well,
Okay, Mr. Doc. Well, since we're there, let's go ahead and address that.
Okay.
So first and foremost, prior to the Ville's voice, and I want to let this be known that is not the topic of today, but since it was brought up, we'll talk about it. Before the Ville's voice ever went on social media and said that we no longer associate ourselves with each other, I had already told the group that I was no longer a part. However, there were some things that we need to handle as a group, and so they decided to go public with things before we had handled things. However, since the door has now been open, I'm going to go ahead and walk through it. We have discussed it like grown adults. The name has legally been signed over to the Ville's Voice, so they now own it.
You own the name, I thought.
Yeah, I did, but let me tell you something, Mr. Dawkins. See, God spoke to me, right? Because see, I always listen to him, and he told me I had a right to turn over that name to that organization because he's doing different things with me. So since it was brought up about the Ville's Voice, they now have the name. It is theirs. We are cordial as adults, but we will no longer work together as an organization. Since I left said organization, I now have a nonprofit that is registered with the state of North Carolina, Mr. Dawkins. So to bring up the Ville's Voice and the things that are put on social media, I don't feel how that is relevant to today's topic, because regardless, there's still an issue to a certain extent with how you conduct yourself as an elected official. Okay. Because, and I say that because, Mr. Dawkins, I don't see how you're really for your citizens. You didn't come to talk to us. You didn't come to hear what our demands are, how we can do. And it's funny that you asked me what I want. I still want the same things I was out there for that market house. I still want a citizen review board, a crisis response team, a community center. My demands haven't changed. And actually, you said during a meeting that we need to stop using the word demands.
That's right.
And so we've been asking for years, Mr. Dawkins. At what point, we're tired of asking. We have the right to demand. Because if you really want to be technical, whether we use the word demand, whether we ask, at the end of the day, you still have the right to whether you want to vote it, to adopt it or not. So why does it matter what word that we use? We've been asking very nicely from our elected officials. Now we're taking back our voices and we're demanding these things.
Okay. Well, let me take them one at a time. You said many years that you've been asking. I would need more, information on that because I've been back since December 2017. So I want to see what those requests were. Number two, the demand piece. My thing is that we need to be reasonable and respectful, and that some people were upset with me on that Monday night with Mr. McMillan. I couldn't hear very good, and then I got interrupted by a couple of council members, which upset me. And then later in the meeting, and I don't know if you saw this, but I took down Ms. Council Member Banks McLaughlin was at the meeting via Zoom. I took the petition down that was to my right, so I could hear the mayor better, because we have a petition between me and Courtney, and then Courtney and Larry Wright, Councilmember Wright, has a petition, and then the mayor sits in right in between these two more petitions. It's hard to hear, so my request on Monday or Tuesday.
It was Monday.
I want speakers to come to the council chambers. We social distance like we're doing now. and so that they can speak directly to me, I will slide the petition back some between me and Councilmember Davis so I can hear. So my thing is, it's important for me to listen. I want to understand exactly what it is that you want. I did not like the demands. And the mayor said, well, Councilman, you might consider them demands, but think of them as requests. And I said, no, Mr. Mayor. It says right here, local demands, we demand. Well, whenever somebody demands something of me, to me, that's disrespectful. I've worked hard to get to this position on council, and I have great respect for the job. I felt like the group was not being respectful. And then I, in turn, was not very respectful because I did interrupt Mr. McMillan because tough time hearing, and then I wasn't happy with some of his demands. And then when I asked him, well, what did Sheriff Wright, tell you when you demanded that he immediately request mask and testing in the county detention center? And he said, well, no, I hadn't heard from Sheriff Wright. And I said, well, then what did the County Board of Commissioners say when you told them that you demand a separate CPOA with independent oversight of the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office, and that the county pay for that? So this group was making demands, and then they said, well, we just want 1% of the police budget. I said, well, that's $570,000 because it's $57 million. I said, no, we're not going to do that. But if we will sit down, go through your concerns, and let's then review them, and then let's look at other cities to see what they do, because as I said yesterday on WIDU, I said I'm a big R&D guy, not research and development. I want to rob and duplicate. If it's working good in another city, I want to rob from them and duplicate it right here. So
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When I said earlier that we got crimes going all over the world, right? You said, but is it in Fayetteville, right? So,
you talk about police brutality.
Police brutality, yes. So why can't we take issues that are affecting us nationally and protest about it right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina? But you're comfortable with taking what another city is doing and bringing it here to Fayetteville. So in other words,
on the police review boards and the CPOA.
But it's kind of what you're saying is kind of like a double standard type thing. It's okay to adopt different laws and different things that they already have an effect in different cities, but we are not we shouldn't really take what other cities have going on with police brutality and bring it here to Fayetteville. That's contradicting yourself, Mr. Dawkins.
You said about protests. As long as it's a peaceful protest and legal, I will support it. I will support it. In my mind, your protest at the Market House was a public safety issue, number one, because you had people in the street. So what would happen, as the mayor said, if somebody got run over, they'd have sued him, meaning they would have sued the city of Fayetteville, because you only sue people with money. The city of Fayetteville, thankfully, has a nest egg. We have a savings account. We have a net reserve. Which will probably end up being around $21 million by June 30th of 2021, if everything kind of goes to plan. But who knows in this Corona COVID-19 world we're living in? Yes, ma'am.
So people are commenting questions here, and I see someone said that you are a Sons of Confederate supporter. Is that correct?
Sons of Confederate supporter. I don't recall ever giving them any money. I mean, I may have 25 or 30 years ago. And so I guess people would consider that support. I'm not a member. I'm not a member of FILI. I was not a member of the Kappa Alpha Order. I was a Sigma Pi at Wake Forest. Most of my fraternity brothers were from the North, and so if you'd have said, do you support do you support, the South and the people in the South? I'd say yes. Would I support Confederacy? I didn't live then, that's a tough question. I have respect for Robert E. Lee and some of the leaders. I did not have respect for Jefferson Davis. I read enough books on him. I read the Constitution of the Confederate States of America, and I absolutely abhor it, condemn it, think it's awful.
Now, do you support Black Lives Matter?
Okay, now let's be very specific. The organization Black Lives Matter, no. They were started by 3 ladies, 2 of whom are avowed Marxists, and the third one is a trained Marxist. She admits all this. They also do not support the nuclear family, a husband, wife, children, which I support. Whether they're single parents doesn't matter. I support families. That's something I'd like to talk about, that and education. But no, I don't support the Black Lives Matter organization. But to me, Black lives do matter. Because we have soldiers laying in that field out there at Fort Bragg that gave their life fighting, they sacrificed their life fighting Marxists and communists. I am not going to support BLM.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Mr. Dawkins. I told you from the jump, the seat that you're sitting in is the hot seat, right? And that kind of bothers me. So when I said, do you support Black Lives Matter, you were direct with an answer. Absolutely. I asked you about the Sons of Confederate, and I didn't get much of a direct answer.
I didn't know. Number one, I did not know if you meant like Confederate States of America, if you meant the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Now my great, we think, fought in the Civil War. So I had family members that fought in the Civil War. Now we didn't, where I can find, our family did not own slaves. My son has done a lot of Ancestry.com research. My family comes from Northern Virginia on my mother's side and my dad's side. A little town called Lively, Virginia. So no, don't be mad at me that I was slow on one, because my family is from the South. I cannot deny that. I don't know prior to like 1830 where they came from. If they came on the Mayflower, if they came over and established at Jamestown, probably Jamestown.
Okay, so you said a pretty interesting statement. You said Black lives do matter, and so that brings us to this painting that was put on the ground, right? And so
yes,
we wanted Black Lives Matter to be painted.
I know,
Mr. Dawkins, and you were one of the ones that were very vocal that you did not want Black Lives Matter. Along with
Councilmember Davis and Councilmember Wright.
I'm aware.
They're both Army veterans, and they have friends that are laying out there in that field.
Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand something, Mr. Dawkins. I'm aware of who wasn't for it. I haven't had them on the show, so I haven't had a chance to address them. So I don't want to talk about them. I'm talking about Mr. Dawkins as a councilman. I don't want to discuss anyone else other than Councilman Dawkins. So with that being said, why did you, not anyone else, you not support Black Lives Matter being painted on the ground?
Because it's a Marxist organization. It implies support of a Marxist organization, Ms. Warren. And as long as I draw breath, and I may die tonight, as long as I draw breath, I will never support any communist or Marxist organization. And if I get called to service to have to go fight, I will go fight. I will go fight, and I may die. But I hope I don't, because my grandson is 3 months old today. And family is so important. Family and then God. And I know you're a Christian.
I absolutely am.
I know you're a Christian because I've read enough on you and I've studied you and tried to get as much information as I can. And, it's important that we keep communications open. I appreciate you doing this because you didn't have to do it. There's 8 African Americans on that city council. There are 2 Caucasians. Thank you for being willing to listen to my viewpoint. You don't have to do it. I have another radio station that's primarily Caucasian that doesn't want to ever have me on. He hasn't had me on since December 2017 because he's not interested in what I have to say.
Well, so, I'm interested. The community is interested because if we can be quite transparent, Mr. Dawkins, it's important that these type of conversations take place and we can understand your viewpoint. Please don't get offended by what I'm getting ready to say, but we need to know where you stand on certain things. So when re-election comes up, we have the right to put our vote where we want it to. And so I feel like, if I could be quite honest, these type of conversations should have been happening. However, I just be so happen to be the one to make them, happen. God allows me because he gave me the gift. And so I feel like the conversation should have been taking place. And so I am having all elected officials on my show. I am reaching out to all of them. Banks McLaughlin will be on. I've already had Mitch Colvin. I've already had Miss Waddell. I had Miss Waddell. And I have Miss Ingram. So I'm getting everybody on the show. You get what I'm saying? But I need you to understand that the citizens are not happy. And so that brings me to another question. You may not support that one organization that we talked about. Do you, outside of being a councilman, do you support any Confederate organization?
No. I mean, I'm just trying to think. I write a lot of checks. My dad's fund at Community Foundation. We give money to Operation Inasmuch. We give money to Fayetteville Urban Ministry. We've given money to Capeford Valley Cancer Center, Capeford Valley Diabetes Center. We've given money to the library. No Confederate organizations. The church, I'm a member of Snyder Memorial Baptist Church. I was baptized in 1971. So next year will be 50 years having been baptized. My dad was a charter member at Snyder.
So my next question is, so the day that we were protesting, right?
Yes.
And the cops took a knee with us. Because you say you say
you're talking about Murchison Road.
Yes. So okay. you say you don't support Black Lives Matter, and right. I got that.
Right.
If you were out there that day, would you have taken a knee with us?
No. I would take a knee to the Lord Jesus Christ. I would take a knee at gunpoint because I want to see my grandson grow up, and maybe one day, Lord willing, I may have a granddaughter. But that was a decision, I'm assuming, made by our chief of police or the leadership team, which is made. The deputy chief is an African American. Of course, the chief is a Panamanian African American. We have an assistant chief who's an Hispanic American. We have an assistant chief who is
So Mr. Dawkins, I don't mean to cut you off, but I know the races of people that sit in these high places. What I was trying to get to, and you've already answered it. If you were out there that day, Mr. Johnny Dawkins would not have taken a knee with us. That was my question.
No.
Okay.
What
now you do realize that day we were peaceful as well, because you said you support peaceful protesting.
Absolutely, but now keep in mind, the police were not going to let you onto Hay Street if you were in that group on Murchison Road. They were not going to let you onto Hay Street. That was the wall that was going to stop it. And if it would have gotten violent and you all would have made the point, then you, I believe, would have been stopped. The emotions were running very high at that time because we had information that said they were going to try to burn the market house again. So the police were not going to let that happen. So how do you like that, Myah? You asked the question. I give you an answer.
Mr. Dawkins, and my question to you is, even when they did stop us, we still shouldn't have been stopped. We were very peaceful. There was no signs that anything may have turned out chaotic. That we had no right to be stopped.
Good point. But keep in mind, just as people came up to your protests that were not good people, that were milling around, we see the police worry about infiltrators. Just like the mayor said, some of these folks that infiltrated and damaged the market house were from out of town. We don't know everybody, that's protesting. As long as it's peaceful, it's no problem. Our worry is if other people co-opt, take over the protest. That's when problems happen. That's what happened in Raleigh. Those folks were professionals. I know some of the people that were involved. They were driving Dodge Chargers with Virginia license plates. So we were worried that those professional protesters, agitators, violent criminals, if they'd have come to Fayetteville, I think you'd have seen us a little bit more aggressive, and I'm glad they did not. But they may in the future. They may in the future, and they need to know that we're not going to stand down.
So, as it pertains to the painting that's on the ground, right, Mr. Dawkins, unfortunately, someone thought it was okay to take white paint and to put it on the ground. When you got word that happened, how did you feel? Because to us, that was a sign of our voice kind of being taken away from us, because that painting meant a lot to us.
I banged out a text. I was not the first person to say, hey, we need to figure out a way to get this up. Let's get on it. And that's, those were texts in the council members to the city manager. And I think they did a phenomenal job getting it up.
Okay.
I mean, it looks great from what the pictures I've seen. I've not been by there. I need to go by there.
Now, what's funny is, and the reason why I bring this up, right? So that's how I actually got to meet you face to face for the first time. I went down there that day and I saw you. Now, we had a conversation that I respected enough not to put on social media because you agreed to come on my podcast.
I did.
Now, one thing during our conversation that I did voice to you bothered me was the entire time we talked about the painting that was actually on the ground and how someone went over it. You never once used the word vandalism or criminals. Never. And I pointed this out to you, Mr. Dawkins. But when you said something about the gate that was surrounding the market house, and you said, well, what are we going to do about the criminals that vandalized the fence and put BLM, Black Lives Matter? And so I said, Mr. Dawkins, wait a minute. You have not used either one of those words the entire time we were talking about the paint on the ground. But now that we're talking about the words Black Lives Matter on the gate, all of a sudden they're criminals and it was vandalism. That's right. Can you comment on that?
Absolutely. When that white paint went down, within hours, our city management team was working the issue. I don't know what kind of paint was used, but I do know this. When we got out there that morning and tried to clean it up, the city was not successful in cleaning up. It took some folks coming in and trying to figure out what the paint was so they could get it up. And they figured out what it was. They figured out what the antidote to that paint was so they could get it up. The city manager texted me and said, I was not aware that there was graffiti on the fence surrounding the market house. I said, yes, there is graffiti. He said, where? I said, it is on and you can check this on my text, it's on the west side facing Hay Street.
No.
And then what bothered me is you said you support that.
I do.
And then I spoke with Council Lady Kinston and said, Council Lady, looks like some of the paint we're able to get up, but now somebody's painted, on our fence. They vandalized, they put graffiti on the fence. She said, well, it's the same thing, Councilman Dawkins. If folks put paint on that street, that's illegal. And if they wrote any graffiti on that fence, that's illegal. That's public property. That's defacing public property.
So I got that part.
Illegal, Ms. Warren.
Mr. Dawkins,
it is illegal.
I got that part, but you still did not answer my question. I'm not talking about what kind of paint is on the ground. I'm not, listen. I'm not talking about who did. I need you to explain to me why two words were never used by you when we talked about the paint on the ground. The minute we talked about the fence, they were used. That's all I want to know. I don't want to know about anything else.
Because what was done on the paint was illegal and vandalism, and the city within hours was activity up. I mean, we were working on it, but the city manager did not even do graffiti on the fence that's on public property.
And since you said that I support it, I believe my.
You told me.
I'm about to see. The same way I'm gonna address you, I'm gonna address myself as well. I can do that. So everybody is clear. When I said I support, what I said was to Mr. Dawkins, the same way they can put paint on the ground and mess that up, then we have every right to take back our voice and put chalk on that fence if that's what they so choose to do. No. Let me finish, Mr. Dawkins.
That is
please.
illegal, and if you do that, you will be arrested.
Please let me finish. I, my T.R. Warren, did not write on the fence. But I, my T.R. Warren, stand with those who did so. Because, Mr. Dawkins, the people who put that white paint on that ground tried to take our voice back. And so all we did was say, if you're going to take this, then we're going to take this. I need you to address what's right and what's wrong. And it was wrong all the way around.
You are wrong, Ms. Warren. You are absolutely wrong. Breaking the law and claiming that you're going to do a tit for tat That's illegal. But I respect you have the right to say that, but you do not have the right to do that. And if you do that, you're breaking the law. That's when Ms. Kinston comes on here, ask her about, my conversation with her. It is so important. You're 22 years old, or
I'm 22 years old, yes, sir.
Okay. It's important that you have touched some nerves, no doubt, in our city, and people are listening to you. My guidance, if I could give you any guidance, and you don't have to take it, is that you continue to study the law. You would be a great African-American female lawyer. We used to have 3 of them in our city attorney office. Now we have 2. Alicia Young Hall resigned the last week or so. We had 3 African-American female lawyers. I would encourage you to continue your education. And yes, if you can survive doing this, that's great.
Wait. If I could survive, what does that mean?
If financially, if you can make money doing this, I don't know what you do, or maybe you inherited money. I don't know.
Well, before you continue, I want to address.
Yes.
I like to address things as you say
Yes.
it. So first and foremost, Mr. Dawkins, I actually own a business. I own a business, and so the business is booming. Secondly, God has blessed me with a new job that I actually start tomorrow. So I've been able to survive very well. My bills have not gone lacking. I do have food on my table. So, no, nobody pays me to have my podcast. No one pays me to do the activism work that I do, but I see a need in my community and I'm going to meet it because Mr. Dawkins, everything isn't about money. So I just wanted to address that. I'm gonna let you continue, but I'm surviving and I'm doing very well.
And it's impressive for a 22-year-old young lady to be doing this because generally you don't get politically active till you're in your 30s because you need it's hard to make a living. It's hard to raise a family. It's very difficult, and it takes a lot of commitment. It takes education. It takes commitment. It takes discipline. All those things you appear to have. So I think you're going to be a force for many years, and I'm going to read your stuff. I'm going to listen to you because it causes me to think. Just as I did today on another email I sent, I said I want to know if we're doing the driving while black again, because we are. We need to stop it. So I want to look at the numbers. So the city manager texted me back and said, the numbers aren't that out of whack. And I said, well, it's 57% blacks being stopped and it's 32% whites. So I need to understand. Okay, so where are these people being stopped? Are they being stopped on Murchison Road, or are they being stopped on Hope Mills Road, or Rayford Road, or Bragg Boulevard, Fort Bragg Road, or Hay Street? Because all I am about is being equal. I want in government people should be treated equally, and if they're not treated equally, then it's not fair. And
so, from your standpoint, to kind of bring things back here full circle. Your standpoint as a man, as a believer, because you said you're a believer, and as an elected official, do you feel as if right now in Fayetteville, North Carolina, every other city and town aside, are we being treated equal right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina?
Great question. It doesn't appear to be so. Black folks, and maybe you, and maybe Bill Voices, I don't know how they're going to run the committee meetings. But I believe you're going to see this council to be willing to listen.
Okay. And so to pretty much piggyback off what you just said, first and foremost, I have filled out an application to sit on a committee.
Okay.
And so that is something that I am taking very seriously.
And let me just tell you, I haven't even seen your application, but I'm on the committee that votes. So you've got one vote, because I want Myah Warren involved.
It's funny that you haven't seen my application, because I actually got a response yesterday from, I cannot remember her name. If I could pull up my email, I'll let you know. But she was pretty much saying that she got my application. And so my response was, well, when will I hear anything? And she gave me a time frame as to when I would. So, yes, I have, at least done that. and, am trying to get myself out there that way.
Well, I want you to know the process. For instance, you send the application in. All right, then the application, they review where you live, where you reside, make sure it's in the city. And then it goes to the appointments committee, which is chaired by Mayor Pro Tem Jensen. Council Lady Waddell is on it. I am on it, and I believe Council Lady Kempston. Then we vote, and then those that get at least 3 votes, you already have 1. Those that get 3 votes goes to the entire council, where the entire council votes. Yep, that's the process.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Appreciate you explaining that. I'm gonna be honest with you. So here's my question, right? So if we have a peaceful protest tomorrow, hypothetically speaking, if we have a peaceful protest tomorrow, no issues, none of that sort. My first question is, will you be in attendance? Secondly, if we ask everyone to take a knee in solidarity and to stand with us together by taking a knee and saying that we want change right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, will Mr. Johnny Dawkins, not anyone else, will Johnny Dawkins take a knee?
No. And I won't be in attendance. I was asked to be in attendance at the Blue Lives Matter walk. And I said no. As an elected official in these very high emotional times, I'm not going to participate, because if something were to go bad, if there were bad people that came in to your group to protest that had ill intention, that would not be good.
So here's my biggest thing, and I challenge you to do this. I challenge you to stop assuming that there's going to be someone that comes in, because since that looting and the rioting took place that one day here in Fayetteville, Mr. Dawkins, every protest going forward has been very peaceful. So I challenge you somewhere deep in your heart to stop doing that. Stop assuming that every protest is going to turn violent. Please stop assuming that someone is going to come in and infiltrate, because Mr. Dawkins, I'm saying this publicly, I feel as if people have enough respect for themselves and for myself not to do that. We are promoting peace. My podcast promotes peace. Everything I do promotes peace. So I challenge you seriously from the bottom of my heart with sincerity. Please stop doing that. We are not promoting violence. It is all peaceful, Mr. Dawkins. I really need you to understand that. It's all peaceful.
And I applaud you for doing that, Myah. I just ask that you respect my position and not, in effect, say, in effect, telling me what I should think. I've watched for 61 years these protests become violent, and because of my experience in watching these things in Detroit, Chicago, Portland last night, bad people could become part, and I cannot afford to let that happen. We pay our police to protect you and everyone else. And but I look forward to coming on your show whenever we can work it out. I appreciate you letting me do this on a Thursday afternoon.
Well, I definitely appreciate it, and I understand time is precious. So with that being said, one thing I always do on my show right before I close is I do like to pray. Please. And definitely going to do that. So without further ado, we're actually going to go before his gracious throne, and we're actually going to do that. So Heavenly Father God, I come to you, God, right now as humble as I know how. Father God, on your behalf, saying, God, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to see another day. Thank you for seeing fit to breathe life into my body, into Mr. Johnny Dawkins' body, and everybody watching. God, humbly, I say we love you and we appreciate you just for that alone. God, right now I come to you on behalf of Fayetteville, North Carolina. God, Fayetteville is in need of your help, in need of your guidance and your direction. God, we have members that sit on the city council, God, who we need you to do a mighty, mighty, mighty work in them, God. God, we need them to understand that when they make laws, when they place their vote, God, that they need to be a representation of you. So, Father God, I'm asking right now to touch everybody that sit on city council, God. And that when they come back into session and when they make certain votes, God, that they consider you. They consider your heart. They consider your love for people in Jesus' name. So that way, when they put things into effect, they're not acting out of flesh, but they're saying, what would Jesus do? Father God, right now I'm coming to you and I'm lifting up Mr. Johnny Dawkins. And I'm saying, God, even though we don't always agree, God, he is still your child. God, I'm asking you to do a work in him, God. I'm asking that you move so mightily, God, that Mr. Dawkins, his light can truly shine, God. God, I'm asking that he be receptive and understanding of other people's opinion, God, and that he may truly allow it to sit in and so that he can consider how we feel, God. Father God, I'm coming to you, God, saying, God, have your way. Not man's will be done, but your will be done, God. God, and if there's anybody that sit in these elected seats that's not for you, God. God, I pray that they be voted out, God. God, I pray that we can get people in place that truly hunger and desire God, and that we can help move Fayetteville in the right direction. Father God, I'm not praying on anyone's downfall, God. I'm just asking that your will be done, God. The same that is in heaven, it shall be on earth, oh God. And Father God, I'm coming to you right now, God, and I'm just truly saying, have your way, God. Not my will, not Mr. Johnny Dawkins, but your will be done, God. Because it's in your son, Jesus' name, that we pray. Amen and amen. So with that being said, you guys, listen, I appreciate you guys for watching Mr. Johnny Dawkins. I really do appreciate you coming on the show. It was very informative to not only myself, but to the community. I think it's important for us to realize what type of elected officials we have in this seat. I appreciate you for coming on. I look forward to having you soon. To everybody watching, listen, we're not just voting for Donald Trump. In November, I need you to vote. But next year, when it's time to vote for city council, I need you guys to be as active as well. You guys, we need to take back our power to vote, because now we see what we're dealing with. Not with just Mr. Johnny Dawkins, with other elected officials that's been on my show, with President Trump. We see what we're dealing with. So I need us to take back our power, because we're all about peace and love. Hashtag peace over beef. Y'all know that's my thing. That's what I say. So we're going to continue to be very peaceful. Once again, and Mr. Johnny Dawkins, thank you guys. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you guys watching, and we will be touching base very soon. Well, with that being said, on behalf of myself here at Making a Change with Myah, I love you guys. Peace out, and thank you all for watching.